Good afternoon, and welcome to this webinar on getting started with BIM 360. This is one in the series offered by MicroCAD on the use of Autodesk Cloud Collaboration System BIM 360. My name is Phil Marshall, and I'll be your presenter today. As a company, MicroCAD empowers design professionals in the construction and manufacturing industries to increase productivity and meet project goals. With 30 years of experience as a minority-owned business, we pride ourselves on working with all clients through every stage of the design process to assess needs and provide tailored and effective solutions. Last week, we talked about the functionality of BIM 360 and how it can help your business. Today, we'll go over the steps necessary to set up a BIM 360 project and discuss industry best practices to make it easy and effective. This is going to be pretty dry material, not a lot of fancy graphics or excitement, because we are just covering what needs to be done. However, these are necessary steps to make your BIM 360 project successful. And a successful project is exciting, right? As we go through the webinar, you may have questions or comments. Feel free to enter them into the questions area of the interface on the right-hand side. If you don't see the control panel, click on the orange arrow. I'll try to respond as I see the questions. One other point, one of the benefits of cloud services is that they can be updated and extended continuously. So this webinar will cover the capabilities as they exist today, but next week there may be brand new functionality. We will repeat BIM 360 webinars in the future and expand them to cover all the new tools. First, let's talk about the problems that BIM 360 is intended to address. This applies to both vertical and horizontal construction endeavors, architectural, civil, plant engineering. Projects are getting more complicated, data is getting heavier, and the number of participants is increasing. These partners could be located anywhere but have to share information. Using a BIM model as a central data repository makes sense in this environment, but how do all these players get access to the data? From experience, we know that solutions like Dropbox are error-prone, FTP sites consume IT resources, and SharePoint-like approaches don't provide the integration with the design tools that we need. Connectivity is no longer a 9-to-5 thing. People are working 24/7 from their home, their car, their trailer. We need better. Autodesk saw the solution as being cloud-based and tied to the software that you use in everyday work. This resulted in BIM 360 Next Generation. BIM 360 provides access anywhere with any device, freeing up the workers to get out of the trailer and onto the site. It provides collaboration tools to enable designers to create submission sets for review and monitor the progress of the review. All of the project data from the BIM model can be reviewed in 3D or as a 2D drawing set. This data could be architectural, MEP, structural, civil, whatever. It's all in one location. And this isn't just a vision of the future. Real companies are building real structures today using BIM 360. Whether it's the world's tallest modular structure, complex highway and bridge projects, or commercial construction, all have benefited from BIM 360. So how do we get started with BIM 360? First, of course, you buy a license. BIM 360 licenses come in many flavors and more are being added all the time. The most common four are Docs, Design, Coordinate, and Build. Docs is the base license. It provides data access and all of the document management tools. Everyone needs this functionality. Design provides for synchronous design. Similar to the former collaboration for Revit product, it lets Revit users put their central file in the cloud. Design includes Docs functionality. Coordinate is intended for pre-construction. The biggest tool is the ability to aggregate multiple models from many sources, including non-Autodesk software, and then run interference checking. Coordinate includes Docs functionality. Build targets the construction phase, providing for field issues, commissioning checklists, and turnover documentation. Build includes documents functionality. Plan supports lean construction practices with job activity scheduling, performance monitoring, and access to all the BIM data. Ops is a facilities and asset management package for owners after turnover, using all of the data in the BIM model. And Cost gives you a 5D functionality with job cost breakdowns and ties to the BIM and plan data. Any one customer may order a mix of these licenses depending on what part of the project they are responsible for. All of these are subscription licenses, so you only buy what you need for the duration you need it. Once the order is processed by Autodesk, you will get a welcoming email like the one with the big Activate Your Account button. The other thing you need to get BIM 360 going is an Autodesk account. If you already have an Autodesk products under subscription, then you have an Autodesk account. Check with your IT or accounting personnel if you don't know it. Okay, so now you can start BIM 360 using any browser, but we find that Chrome tends to work best right now. Log in with your Autodesk account credentials. Let's clarify what kind of administration you can do in BIM 360. Account administration is where you create projects and activate services. Services are the functional areas like design collaboration, pre-construction coordination, cost management, and so on. There's a one-to-one relationship between the services and the licenses. In account administration, you add or remove company members and assign project admins. But perhaps the most important function, the one you must not forget to do, is to assign additional account admins. Remember, you got to be a BIM 360 account admin by having your company's Autodesk account manager assign you. You are the only one with BIM 360 functionality until you assign others. The first thing you should do is assign an additional account admin just in case something happens to your account. Otherwise, your company would be locked out of BIM 360. Here we go. So here am I logged into the MicroCAD BIM 360 account. We see that you could have any number of active projects. In the account management screen, you can add and manage people, companies, and roles. The role screen shows the access a user has to different services depending on what role they are assigned. Autodesk provides lots of different roles. We're going to talk more about that later. The analytics screen shows statistics about projects and license assignments. Here you would see how many licenses are being used. Let's say we want to create a brand new project. In the project profile, we add information about the project. The project type could be a production project, determined by the kind of structure, or a test or template project. We'll talk more about a template project. The start and end dates are used to check for erroneous data input. Don't worry if your project overruns schedule, nothing bad happens in BIM 360, although some things could happen bad in real world. These fields are used by plan and cost to help predict performance. The location information is used to give weather information on the project homepage. And the project language determines the interface. You could be working in Boston and design a project for Montreal. The site interface could then be in French. For your new project, you would fill in this project profile page and then double-click on the project to go to a project administration. Let's talk about project templates. Just like in AutoCAD and Revit, templates are starting points for a project. In BIM 360, you could create many templates for different kinds of projects. Perhaps on one project, you are the principal architect in a design build. Another could be a design bid build project. You would treat those differently. Many of the things that have to be set up for a project are in the template. So if you can do it once and reuse it, you'll save time. Say that you have a contract to build 3 elementary schools in Connecticut. They will all have similar design features, review processes, and commissioning requirements, so you create a BIM 360 project template configured for that job. Then create 3 production projects based on that one template. Those of you who've worked with Revit know that setting up a good Revit project template is key to being productive. Same thing here. Now let's look at how we would configure a project. Start with the folder structure to hold the documents. By default, projects come with 2 folders, plans and project files. You can add subfolders by clicking on the 3 dots and selecting Add Subfolder. For subfolders under plans, you might want to separate documents by the type of documents. For subfolders under project files, you definitely want to organize them by the authoring structure or authoring organization. So making a subfolder for every distinct discipline makes sense. The reason why this is important is that if you use design collaboration, all Revit files are put in the project files folder. If you have discipline folders, you can assign permissions to the authoring organization, keeping lines of responsibility clear. We'll talk more about permissions after we get people into the project. In the plans folder, among other things, you can put PDF files. We can automate the extraction of title block information for those files. When companies organize documents, they typically have additional information about each document, like job number or site location. Documents can have user-defined attributes or metadata. In the folder view, you can add and manage attributes. Note that the attributes of a folder containing photos will be different from the attributes of a folder containing drawings. The folder view of documents can show any set of attributes as a table. In the Project Files folder, this information comes from the Revit files. In the Plans folder, it is common to have PDFs of the drawings. To save time, the values of the attributes can be automatically filled in from the title block of the drawings. To set it up, click on the 3 dots for the folder and select Title Block. In the dialog, you map the attribute to the corresponding location in the title block. It's that easy. Remember, you could set up different title blocks for different folders because the title block may vary depending on the source of the PDF. For the project, you have to indicate what modules are going to be available. If you are responsible for pre-construction coordination, then you're going to want to have Coordinate available. These choices map to the licenses. If you don't have a Coordinate license, it won't be shown here. But activating these services for a project doesn't use up a license. It only makes it available for when a person is invited to use that service. That's when the license gets used. The recommended process for adding members is to add them to the BIM 360 account using account administration and then invite them, some of them, to the project. When you add members to the account administration screen, you specify the name, email, and company. If you have this information in spreadsheet form, you can import the spreadsheet. Conversely, once you have a list of members, you can output it as a spreadsheet. Members have roles within the project. This role may be different for different projects. Out of the box, BIM 360 provides 36 unique roles. For each role, a set of services may be assigned. For example, the architect role needs to use document and project management, design collaboration, model coordination, and field management. The construction manager needs all of these except design collaboration because they don't do design. Using roles can clarify who is responsible for what in the project. Now we can invite individual members to the project. In the Project Administration screen, Members tab, you can add members by name. It looks at the list of available names and fills in the email and company. Because a person may have different roles on different projects, you can assign the roles here. By choosing the role, default services are assigned. If Sam is a field foreman not involved in design, then we'd probably assign build to Sam and not design. On the other hand, if Mary is an architect and not involved in construction, she would be assigned design and not build. You can only assign services to people up to your purchase license limit. Remember, you can change the assignment any time, so if Mary has moved to another project and she doesn't need design capability there, but she still needs to stay in touch with the project, then just remove the design service from her and that license is freed up for someone else. So we have the people and we built the folder structure earlier. We now can assign permissions. In BIM 360, permissions are at the folder level and can be assigned either to individuals, companies, or roles. Remember when we added a person at the account admin level, we assigned them to a company. So now we can say everyone from ABC Mechanical Company can edit in this one folder, and that permission would apply to new people added with a company of ABC. Note that permissions are inherited, so if you create subfolders, users with permissions to the parent folder will have the same permissions to the child folder. Roles were assigned at the project admin level. Susie may be the VDC for one project and the supervisor for another. Setting the permissions by role simply says anyone with that role has these permissions. And for total control, we could assign permissions to individual, like we see here. The permission level determines if a user can view, edit, or upload files within that folder. This is how we ensure the fire protection designer doesn't change the architectural model. In the Autodesk knowledge base, there is a long document, a portion of which is shown here, that shows what actions are controlled by the permission level. For example, to rename a document, you would need at least view, upload, edit permissions. Built into BIM 360 is the ability to have documents or document sets go through a predefined review workflow. We have to set up these workflows to make them available. So I'll go into a project, and under Project Admin, we can define workflows. To create the new workflow, you specify the template, the workflow template we'd like to use. In this case, I'll choose a two-step approval. Then we can define who has the ability to initiate this workflow. And we can assign that capability either by people, individuals, or by roles, or by company. So here I'm going to say anyone who is at company MicroCAD has the ability to initiate this review process. Then the initial review, this is a two-step review process, initial and final. So the initial review would be done by a reviewer, could have multiple reviewers, but I'm just going to do a single reviewer to approve it. And here we could choose, again, individuals, roles, or company. Let's look at the roles here. Anyone who has the role of project manager has the ability to do the initial review of this document. Then we can say for the final review, who has the ability to do final review? We could assign that to a single person. Laura has to make that approval, or else it doesn't go anywhere. And for each of these review steps, we could allocate how much time is allowed before it gets risen to a higher level of visibility. During the workflow, documents have a status which updates. So we can specify the status as it goes from step to step to step. This is shown in the document management screen. It would be sorted so you could see all documents of different status. At the end of a successful review, the documents can be copied to another folder. So it would be common for an organization to set up a release documents folder into which any documents that have passed the final release can be copied automatically. You would then make accessible that release documents folder available to anyone in the organization so they can see any release documents. But you would restrict them from seeing the documents that are still works in process. The intent here is to make the workflow and the status very visible to users. Let's see what this would look like in a project. So for this particular project, we see there's a series of reviews are underway. I know the status, I know who initiated it. I guess I've been busy. And who is the next step by. So in this particular one, anybody from MicroCAD has the ability to move it to the next step. Some of these obviously got a long time waiting. I got to call Sheila and ask what she's doing. So the review process is a great way of keeping track of what documents have been approved and where they are in the workflow. Let's talk about checklists. For on-site quality, safety, and commissioning, BIM 360 Build offers checklists to ensure compliance and completeness. As a build, so here, for example, there's some checks that need to be done on certain steps. That the guy in the field has to make sure is handled. In Build, we can organize these checklists by type, QA, QC, safety, commissioning, and enter the question response for each checklist. It would be very common to have many checklists in a project. As you could imagine, building these checklists could take some time. So Autodesk provides a set of checklist templates from which to start. You would take those templates, edit them for your particular situation or your particular project, and then load them in to that particular project. So what we've done today is we've gone through identifying the steps necessary to start a BIM 360 project. Additional steps would be necessary for BIM 360 plan, ops, and cost. It may seem like a lot of work, but it really isn't complicated. It is a lot of detail work. A big time saving would be to set up BIM 360 project templates so your next project is easier. If you feel overwhelmed, MicroCAD provides services to help our customers get started with BIM 360 and will make the project templates you need. Usually that's a one-day engagement or less. All right, so let me catch up on the questions. There was a question about the cost management module. Yeah, I mentioned BIM 360 cost. This is Autodesk announced the availability of the BIM 360 cost management module earlier this year. What the intent of that module is, it plugs into the same data as the rest of BIM 360 and provides a process for creating and estimating proposals, project spending over time, and accounting for expenses. So it's really keeping track of all of the dollars that go with all of the materials and all of the labor in the field. This module is not on a full customer release. It's only a limited availability for pre-released offers. So if your organization is interested in working with Autodesk to try out the BIM 360 cost module, give me a call. I'll give you my number later. And let me know. We'll arrange something between you and Autodesk to get that on the trial. There was a question about Autodesk Vault. So that's a good question. How does Autodesk Vault fit into the world of BIM 360? Well, Vault is very much designed and oriented towards non-premises data management system. And in that environment, it works extremely well, especially our manufacturing customers just love Vault for its version and revision control. Built into Vault in the last release is the ability to publish to BIM 360. So we can use BIM 360 to distribute documents from Vault that are released available to other people. So if you were a manufacturer of a railing system for balconies, for example, and you're using Vault to manage your data, and now a project comes along where an architect says, I really need what you did with that balcony railing, but I need it a little bit bigger, make this change. You could, from your Autodesk Vault implementation on site, on premises, generate a new release for this particular project, publish it to BIM 360, and make it available, the data available to all of the team members on that architect's project. So it is able to work with BIM 360 where you're sharing the results from Vault. Let's see. Somebody asked, what did I mean by 5D when I was talking about the cost module? Yeah, there's lots of buzzwords that are used that get thrown around. So what I meant by 5D is that throughout BIM 360, we're talking about a 3D model, XYZ. If you add time to that, so we looking at scheduling or looking at access for vehicles, things like that. Now we're talking about 4D BIM, XYZ, and time. And if you add cost, then that's termed by the industry as a 5D solution. So it's XYZ, time, and cost. Nothing fancy, just that's a shorthand that people use. So that was a good question. This sounds really complicated. It sounds like there's lots of steps. And how do I get started if I don't want to do all of these steps? Do I have to do all this stuff? And the answer is no, you don't have to do everything. You just have to create the project, add the members, give them privileges through roles, and then you can start using it at that point. So if you've got a project starting Monday and your people haven't even been trained yet, you don't have time to figure out workflows and checklists. You just want to get them going. So as your people gain experience, then you could add more and more of this functionality as you need it. Realistically, you'd want to implement as much of the functionality as possible to get the most benefit, but we recognize that there's plenty of times where deadlines are imminent and you just have to get going. So in that case, you could defer some of these steps. So there's a question about, getting back to the Vault, Autodesk Vault, there's a question about the workflows. The workflows in BIM 360 and the workflow and in Vault are two separate defined workflows, and they have no correlation between each other. So you build a workflow in Vault where you're controlling and releasing documents in Vault based on reviews. In BIM 360, you have the same functionality, but they aren't linked. The workflows themselves are not linked. The expectation is that one or the other of these systems would be the primary driving system, and the other system would be secondary, perhaps read-only. So as I was describing the balcony rail manufacturer before, the manufacturer would probably be using Vault as their primary data management system. When they get to the point where they have a Vault railing that they want to share with this particular project, then they would link it to the BIM 360 implementation, probably mark it read-only, and the architect would then take that model and put it into the AEC model using BIM 360, but it'd be in read-only mode. So the workflows do not overlap. And really, I don't think you would want them to. I think within your own organization, you want workflows that control the flow of the data and determine when it's released and approved. But you'd want to keep the manufacturing data in Vault and the drawing data for AEC purposes in BIM 360. I think it's different purposes. Let's see any more questions. There's a question about the content of the BIM 360 data, and throughout this I've been talking about Autodesk files and Autodesk design processes within the BIM 360 world, but it doesn't have to be Autodesk files. You could use BIM 360 to manage Word docs or emails or virtually anything that is file oriented. The biggest payoff, however, is of course the integration to the design tools like AutoCAD and Revit, which work so closely with BIM 360 that they're using BIM 360 internally. So that's where you get the biggest payoff. Putting non-Autodesk files in BIM 360 is perfectly possible, and there is an integration with Microsoft Office that works very well, but that's not where you're going to get the big bang for the buck. So there was a question about creating project templates. As I mentioned a couple of times, there's a lot of value in having project templates that are set up beforehand, because that makes it quick and easy to build the next project, and it also guarantees consistency from one project to the next. To create the project template, it's the same process that you would do to create a project. So we go back and actually in the account admin page, we say I want to create a new project and make all of those decisions and then give it a project type of template. So now it knows it's a template project. Once I've created the project template, put the work in to configure it the way I want to, when I create a new project, I can say I want to use that particular template. So now it's going to be a Connecticut school, use that template, and then all of those decisions happen automatically. There's a little clarification question about permissions. I did say that the permissions are inherited, so they go from the parent to the child. That's the default behavior. There may be situations where, for example, you may have a security group working as a sub of the MEP, but you don't want the security data to be available to other people. So in that case, all you need to do is go to the child folder, which has inherited permissions from the parent, and you can override the permissions at that level. Let's see, one more question came up about fields. So you can add more attributes. Some of the attributes are automatically built in, like project name, project number, author, dates, things like that, size. These are all automatically provided within the documents. Additional attributes you can user define, and they can be dates or text or numbers, whatever you want, and you can add as many attributes as you feel necessary for your management. Remember that adding attributes is done by the folder level, so all of the documents under one particular folder, like if you had a folder of photos, you might want to have an attribute for location. If you had a folder of inspection reports, you may want to have an attribute of who the inspector was. So there's different attributes you could assign to different folders. So there was a question I mentioned before about linking Vault with BIM 360. And someone asked a good question. It says, is that possible only with Vault Professional? I believe it is. I don't know that for sure, but I will check. And whoever's asking that question, if that's critically important, I'm going to give my email. Send me an email saying that's your question, and I'll make sure to get back to you with a confirmation. I believe it is only available in Vault Professional to publish to a BIM 360 environment. I just hate to say absolutely unless I check it. So if that's an important question for you, send me an email. All right. I don't see any more questions. All right. So I appreciate the time that you've given me today, that you've spent listening to today's webinar. I hope you found it useful. We do have another webinar coming up next week on BIM 360 design, the collaborative design part of BIM 360 on October 31st. And keep watching www.microcad3d.com as we add more webinars to the series. If you want more information, feel free to contact me directly or any of the MicroCAD offices. Thank you again, and this concludes the webinar.